Hi, everyone. Hey. Good to meet you guys. So welcome to the design-driven revenue optimization session. So my name's Jocelyn, and I am a business development analyst at Unity Analytics. My role here at Unity is to help developers such as yourselves find value in the analytics features that we offer. So if you guys haven't met me yet, come by the analytics booth. I'll say hi, I don't bite. It'll be great to meet you guys face to face. I'm joined today by my colleague, Sullivan, who is the Director of Product for IAP and Ads. And together, we're here today to show you guys how to build a better game and create better monetization strategies. So to start things off, a quick question. Who here has heard of the studio called Twimler? Called Twimler. Twimler. All right, so after this presentation, you'll definitely know of them. So for those of you who don't know of Twimler, here are some statistics that you might find really interesting. So Twimler started just a few years ago as a single-man studio, just like many of you here. But now they're experiencing 20,000 downloads per day and 800,000 daily active users. That's pretty cool, right? So some of you may be wondering, how did they get from a single hobbyist into such a thriving game studio in such a short amount of time? And how did they turn a simple match 3 game concept into something so exciting and engaging for its users? And lastly, how do they sustain such consistent growth over time? So we'll be covering that and more, and then Steven will give you an overview of the product features that Twimler use in order to enable their success. So first, I'm going to start with a background of Twimler. So Twimler was begun by software developer and gaming enthusiast Majid Khosravi. So in 2012, he decided that instead of just playing games, he wanted to create some. So he started off using Unity Pro and wanted to create a match 3 game like the games that he liked playing himself. So that led to his first game, Jewel Mash. So Jewel Mash started off as a strong success and has experienced consistent growth to this day. So how exactly did they do this? Well, Majid knew from the start that he had 2 challenges as a game designer. The first one is that he needed to design new levels at the perfect difficulty to keep it fun and engaging for users, but not quite so difficult that users were discouraged from playing. The next one that he was concerned about was that he needed to design monetization strategies for different types of users using IAP and rewarded video ads. So in his own words, he needed to find a game engine that made it easy to build the basic game, gather insight so he could tweak the gameplay, and create a way to get paid that naturally fit into the game. So most importantly, he needed this development process to be fast and easy. So that led to Unity, and we're really glad that the combination of Unity Ads, IAP, and Analytics has helped him experience such tremendous success to this day. So we're going to walk you through the development process that Twimler used, and Steven will come up here and give a demonstration of the product features that enabled Twimler's success. So let's welcome Steven to the stage.
Thanks very much, Jocelyn. Hi, I'm Steven Sullivan, Director of Product Management at Unity Technologies. My role is to focus on building tools to help developers monetize using ads, analytics, and IAP. What we're going to do today is go through Twimler's journey from pre-launch to optimization at scale. One of the things we like to do at Unity is focus on specific use cases and examples of the core playbook developers use to be successful, rather than just talking about some statistics. So let's start by talking about beta launch. Let's assume that you've created a fun game. You've shown it to a few friends of yours, they really enjoy it, and you want to take it to the next level. It's time to go to beta. Now, something that Majid was really smart about was he didn't just launch the game globally on day one. He put the game into target beta markets. This is a common best practices for developers to do. So by putting a game into a beta market, you get time to refine the mechanics, the fun, engaging parts of your game, and you also get time to refine your monetization strategy. A lot of developers make the mistake of saying, I would like to launch my game and see what happens. The problem is, if you look at the game development lifecycle, you usually get a majority of your installs during the first few weeks of launch. If you don't have a monetization strategy in place during launch, you're going to give up an enormous amount of revenue, which can contribute to your later success. So let's talk about that. So the first thing that you need to do in a monetization strategy is look at your ad strategy. Your monetization strategy typically has two parts: ads monetization and IP monetization. In an ads strategy, the key mechanic is to make sure that your ads integration flows within the natural evolution of your gameplay. In the past, developers have put banner ads off to the corner, they've put interstitials over top of their gameplay, but with rewarded video, you can actually integrate ads into the mechanics, such as your daily bonus, and start a virtuous cycle where people play the game, earn money from ads, upgrade, collect resources, and build and expand to return back into that loop. Let's talk about how this is done. Unity Ads is a simple setup. There is no SDK. You flip a switch, and you can integrate within 30 seconds. I'm going to go show a demo now on the left side to show how this is done. All right, everything's got to wake up. And here we go. So Twimler was nice enough to share their project with us today, so we can see an actual ads integration rather than just a raw beginning project. So you can see right here, you've got your world. Over here in the Explorer, we have a Unity Ads object. If we hit play, the game starts to run. So skip the fatui. Fatuis are always important. And we'll see this is Twimler's world. So what they've done is they've integrated Unity Ads directly into the daily bonus mechanic of their game. I can go up here on a daily basis, click this button, and now I'm watching an ad. And the key thing here is this is a daily bonus mechanic which not only increases monetization, but also increases retention. Players will come back to this game day after day to collect the bonus at a predetermined time. Here we see a cross-promo ad that Twimlers run for one of their other games, Fruit Bump. And finally, the chance to click through and spread their network to different parts of their game. You can see there the nice little collection animation where coins go from the video bonus to the wallet, therefore enforcing the positive association people have with collecting rewarded video ads. Let's go back and continue to talk about their story. Back to the presentation, we can talk about the story. Great. The next step of this process is to integrate IP. It's important that you have a monetization strategy built into your mechanics before you launch, as we mentioned. One of the things that stopped a lot of developers from doing this is this complicated picture to integrate with multiple app stores. You develop on Unity, and one of the advantages is you can build once and run on all these different platforms to get maximum distribution and maximum audience. But every single app store has made it as difficult as possible to complete an IAP purchase. They all have different interfaces, they all have different flows. So Unity, we saw this problem, and rather than have everybody in the ecosystem solve it, we decided to build a unified Unity IAP interface that gives you the same transaction API for every single store. That means I can build my game, run it on iOS, launch it on Google, and I don't have to make any changes because behind the scenes, Unity is taking care of all your transactions for you. Now we're in beta. We've integrated ads, we've integrated IAP. What we can see here is on the left side, we have DAU. That's this line. That's how many users you have in your game, and we'll see that grow as you launch. On the right side, in the columns, are ARPDAU. ARPDAU is average revenue per daily active user. ARPDAU is the clearest metric that shows how well you are monetizing your users. So for however many users you have divided by your total revenue, a good ARPDAU for a casual game is something like 3 to 6 cents. A good ARPDAU for a mid-core game can get as high as 50 cents to $2. And now it's ready, the studio's ready to go live. Before they went live, Twimler did one last key playbook mechanic that helped them succeed. And that is, they created a new user IAP offer. We know from developing games that there are different kinds of spenders. There's minnows, dolphins, whales, and people that don't spend. A majority of people, when they first start your game, obviously haven't spent anything. But how do you get them into the habit of purchasing? The best way to do that is to show them a promotion. Give them a special limited one-time offer that makes them see the value of buying IAP and also makes it a no-brainer for them to do it to advance in your game. So this first-time buyer offer is a best practice used by the biggest studios in the industry. And what you want to do is, using a tool such as Unity Analytics, you can identify which users have paid and haven't paid yet, and then target the ones that haven't paid with the first-time offer. So over here, it's probably a little hard to read. What Twimler did was they built a back-end tool that targeted their users based off their past spending behavior. In one instance, they would show a user that's paid an offer that gives them $99 package. Maybe that's a whale that they've already identified. For users that have only paid a little, they show them a $4.99 package. This means what you'll get is the optimum transactions based off what your user's past behavior is. So then Twimler went live. And as we can see, their DAU took off. And because they had thought about their purchasing up front, they were able to maximize the amount of revenue that they got and be able to grow the game. So once you have a game that both retains well, it's fun, your players enjoy it, and it monetizes well, you are in the enviable position to keep the game continuing to scale. So what do you do to scale? One of the challenges in the mobile gaming industry is there are only so many organic downloads you're going to get a day. This means people that have found your game through word of mouth, or people that are searching through the App Store that decide, oh yeah, that looks fun. It is a game that I'm going to engage with. But there are lots of other places where people are playing games and seeing ads, and you would want to get in front of those audiences as well. So what Twimler does was they had an ads strategy. Using Unity ads, they were able to continue to scale their games and plow the revenue they've got from their initial users back into building to success. They've created a virtual cycle by putting the right message in front of the right player at the right time to continue for their overall studio to succeed. All right. So a couple key things to remember when doing user acquisition. One, you want to make sure that you are measuring the LTV that you get out of the users you acquire. You can use a tool like Unity Analytics to make sure that the cost of customer acquisition is less than the amount of the users you eventually made. When you're doing this properly, your graph looks something like this. What it means is I've kept my ARPDAU the same, but I can continue to scale my game. You want to compete in the mobile game industry, you got to become one of the big players and be at massive scale. This is the way to do it. Twimler is a perfect example. Finally, after we have a lot of scale, it's time to continue optimizing. Free-to-play games are never done. You want to continue adding content. You want to continue looking at your analytics, making sure people are getting through the levels the way you expect them to, make sure people are engaging with the features the way that you expect them to. And once you get these behavioral insights, you can then use that to make the next decision for how to improve your game. As I said before, it could be content. In this case, what Twimler did was they decided they were going to optimize the way ads worked in their game. They did this by looking at retention. And what they found was, at first, they were showing an ad every 10 minutes. This worked well, but they wanted to see if they were leaving some potential on the table. They gradually dialed down or increased the ad frequency and saw what the effect was on retention. So using Unity Analytics, what they discovered was there was a pivot point. After showing ads once every 2 minutes, once they went to 1 minute, they saw a big drop-off in user retention. But by identifying that pivot point, they were able to find the perfect balance between keeping users in their game and engaged and monetizing through Unity ads. And here's the result. 80% of Twimler's revenue came from Unity ads, while 20% came from Unity IAP. Overall, both columns increased. They've now optimized and maximized their ads and their IAP revenue at the same time. So that's the journey of Twimler. Majid started thinking about how he was going to be successful very early on in the design process. He built a game thinking about not only the fun core mechanics, but also his ads and IAP strategy. Knowing that IAP offers were an effective way to monetize users, he put those mechanics in the game before he launched and reached massive scale. After initial scale, he plowed the money back into Unity ads to create a virtuous cycle, which continued to grow his studio and multiply that success. And then the icing on the cake was he found the perfect balance of ads and IAP monetization and retention and engagement to maximize his studio. What did we see? He was able to grow ads revenue per user 60% during this journey, and he was able to grow IAP revenue by 70%, all while scaling the studio to 800,000 DAU, as we mentioned before. By doing it right, Majid was able to leave his day job and do what he loved full time. He also built a studio of 7 people who love it just as much. I think this is the goal of every great game developer. Yeah. And this isn't just a solo case. At Unity, we've been focused on becoming experts in ad monetization and free-to-play gaming. We're building the tools to enable all of your success. In America alone, this means we've grown ad revenue by 97% since the last time we were at Unite in Boston last year. So we like to say, this is why Unity is the only engine that pays you to use it. We've paid out more in publisher revenue than we've taken in for developer subscription revenue in the last year. Thanks. Now, we're going to share with you some exciting product updates to show you what's coming next. First, I'm going to start with Unity IAP. One of the main problems developers are facing today is how to distribute their game into different markets. There's still a fragmented ecosystem. Unity IAP supports over 9 platforms. Today, we announced the support of Facebook IAP. We are also happy to announce the support of Cloud Moolah, a consortium of app stores in Southeast Asia. It is now easier than ever to get global footprint for your games. And finally, we announced the support of Xiaomi, a huge app store in China. This opens up a market that Unity developers were never able to have access to before. And now it is easy, as a push of a button in the Unity ads and services window, to deploy everywhere you need for your success. And another update for IAP. We know integrating IAP is a huge pain. So we've set the aspiration to make IAP codeless for Unity developers. You guys are used to creating objects and interfacing in the Unity editor. So we said to ourselves, why do you have to write a bunch of code to handle all the difficult intricacies of IAP, even with the simplified interface for Unity? I'm going to give a live demo on the left screen right now to show how this works. It's the right screen, left screen. Great. So let's go to a new project. Still that? All right, well, give me time to get this new project open. Left screen, please. All right. So what I'm doing now, could we move to the left screen, please? Is I've opened up a new project in Unity. There we go. And so as you can see, I've enabled a number of services over here on the right side, and I have my blank canvas. This is where normally I would define a bunch of IPs in code, register them, have a few callbacks. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, I want to monetize my game. I'm going to go to the Unity IP menu and say, let's create a button for IP. So this looks like a nice button. It's a little small, but it is what it is. So let's look at the text field. It might say something like buy on it. There we go. There's my buy button. The way codeless IP works is for every button, we've defined a button as an IP button. Here, we can see we have a catalog of the things somebody might buy. It's empty right now because this is a brand new project, but I might want to say I want to buy a bunch of coins. All right, so now I could possibly buy a bunch of coins. I go in, select the product ID that I just defined in the catalog, assign it to this button, and hit play. Now when I click the button, I initiate a purchase with an app store. That is all it takes. What this is doing in the background is it is initializing the IP item with either the Google Play Store, the Apple Store, the Windows Store, the Xiaomi Store, whichever store you want, taking care of all the specific logic behind that. And when I hit purchase, it's going out and just telling me simply, purchase succeeded or purchase failed. Of course, the purchase is going to succeed, and then you're done. So we spent a lot of time thinking about how to just take complexity out of game developers' life. We're pretty excited about this step with codeless IP. We're going to continue building tools and seamless integrations to build IP to make your game successful. Let's go back to the presentation. All right. So next is an update for Unity ads. At Unite Amsterdam, we announced brand advertising. Unity ads then supported brand advertising in beta. We're happy to announce today that brand advertising is now live to the entire Unity network. Using SDK 2.0, developers are able to get both game ads and brand advertising to boost their eCPM and drive the highest ARPDAU for developers in the industry. And we've seen success for developers during the beta and extremely great brand advertisers that want to get in front of your audience to help partner with you and enable your success. To integrate brand advertising, it's also important to know that this is an SDK solution, and starting in 5.5, which will be released in a matter of weeks, you will be able to flip the switch of a button and show brand advertising in your game. You don't have to do anything differently than you're doing before, and we're really excited to bring these advertisers to you. So that does it for best practices on IP and ads monetization. Those are a couple of our product updates. I'd like to welcome Marc, Tanenbaum, and Rambod to show you some analytics updates that we have in the area of heat maps. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. So we're going to take a bit of a left turn here. Rambod and I are not going to talk about monetization per se. When you think about game success, what it takes to make game success, there's sort of twin pillars. Monetization, obviously, really important if you want to put food on the table and move on to creating and winning and getting on to your next game, right? We all have to feed ourselves. The other half, though, is making something that's worth monetizing. So player engagement, getting around to a the thing that makes the monetization work in the first place. And the tool that we're going to talk about is something that we introduced about a year ago, and we've been working forward on it. And we're flying without a net here because we're working on it. We're going to show you here the bleeding edge of the work we're doing right now. So it's not quite what's available today, but it's showing you some really fun stuff that we're doing. So if we could go over to the left. Thank you. OK, so this is our heat map system. So first off, quick show of hands. Who here understands the concept of a heat map as it might be used in a game? Most of you, although I see a few hands didn't go up, so I'm going to imagine you're not falling asleep, but rather that you actually maybe don't know a lot. So let me give you a quick intro. The idea of a heat map is simply we have tracked a user and what they've done in the game. What did they do? In this particular case, we're just looking at their player position. Where did they go? But the hotter the map is, the more users did a thing. They went somewhere. So this particular example, you may recognize, it's Firewatch by Campos Santos. They were very, very kind to lend us their awesome assets. I think you saw Timony and Amir using them in the keynote for a similar purpose, actually, to show off some of the interesting things that you can do. They're beautiful assets, and it's a terrific game if you haven't played it. But here what we're looking at, essentially, is where did users go in the initial mission of the game? Obviously, people spent a lot of time in the tower. If you've played the game, you know that it starts in a tower. And then they eventually are told, oh, there's fireworks going off. You need to stop that. It's a fire danger. You have to pick up a couple of items and go and find the offenders, right? So this is just a sort of a basic heat map setup of where the users went. Not surprisingly, they spent a lot of time in the tower, less time out of the tower. If we can move on to the next setup here. So one of the really cool things about what we can do with heat maps is not just track where you were, but we can add to that when you were there. So we're adding an extra dimension, right? XYZ coordinates, but also time. So what Rambod's just doing here is he's literally playing back the player data. And note, by the way, this is in Unity. It's not on a dashboard somewhere. We're trying to bring the data to you where you work as a Unity developer. So let's run that through one more time. So you just see players walked around. You now see some of them leaving. So we're getting space. We're getting time. OK, and we can do even more than that. So Rambod, why don't we move on to the next setup and take a look at what we got there. Max out on the time. Huh. Yeah, you know, OK. It's a good point you make. Yeah. So you guys can't make much sense of that data, I expect, because it makes no sense. But we did this for a reason. We want you to understand a little bit about what the process is by which you arrive at a heat map that's meaningful. Data is not meaningful. Data is just dots. And what we're seeing here are about 1,000 dots that have been completely shown raw. So Rambod, could you do me a favor? And let's start the process of aggregating this data into something meaningful. I'd like to start by aggregating space. Yeah. So show them how you'd aggregate space. I think 1 Unity unit should be about right for this. So, cleans it up a little.
Yeah.
Cleans it up a little. OK, so I showed you could do space, but I also mentioned you could do time. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to unify time. So which means I'm basically going to throw the differences in time out. So if you could do that for me. OK.
It's a little better.
Getting better. OK.
Still kind of hard to tell.
I agree with you. It is. So we've got space, and we got time. But we've also been tracking rotation, literally, which direction was the user facing. Why don't we aggregate rotation?
All right. What do you think? 45 degrees?
Yeah, give that a whirl.
Sure.
OK, I'm getting some meaning. Still a little messy.
It's better, but I mean, really, when we think about this, we really have 4 sides to the lookout tower, right?
Yeah.
So what if we tried 90 degrees so we really get those 4 directions that we really care about?
Give it a go. Let's see what we get. OK. That looks a lot more readable to me, right? I think now you can see you have a game. You're in a tower. The tower basically has 4 ways you can look. Now, you can choose, as we've just shown you, to break it down in a lot of different ways. But 90 degrees for this game works really well. You want them, part of that mission, as I mentioned, is they need to see where these fireworks are being set off. And they're being set off over, well, my left, your right. And you can see there's red arrows and yellow arrows, hotter colors, pointing you in that direction. Bluer arrows where they've looked a lot of different places. You expect some noise in the system, but that looks a little better. We just lost our video. Can we get our video back? It really helps a presentation when you have video. Oh, yeah. OK, can we get the actual
go back to the
presentation on right, please? OK. We might need some technical support here because we can't show our stuff. All right, well, what's that? Oh, OK. Let's take a look at that. OK, while he looks at the technical issue there. So what we've been describing is we can aggregate by space. We can aggregate by time. We can aggregate by direction. Here we go. And another thing that we can do is we don't have to look at just one data set. So as I mentioned, the data we're looking at right now, thankfully, is all about player position. Very useful stuff. But we're going to do something different. If you can move on to the next setup. OK, this is player interaction. So we sent a different event, and we said, this one is where the player was, but this other one is where they were when they interacted with an object. Now, again, if you don't know Firewatch, you're told, I need you to interact. I need you to grab a radio. I need you to grab a backpack. And you see this cluster of arrows in the upper left. That's where the radio and the backpack are. There's a little noise. As I say, there'll always be a little noise in the system, which means somebody somewhere went and picked up the wrong thing. If Campo Santo saw this data, they're probably pretty happy. They're like, they interacted the way I wanted them to interact. We did a setup, though, just to kind of show maybe not so good. Can you show me that? If you saw this, you might be going, not so much. OK, so some people found the right things. But a bunch of other people went all over the place. If you were looking at that data and this was your game, you'd maybe want to think, it's time for me to work out why my players aren't interacting the way I expect them to. And then you can take corrective action. That's the key to analytics, is that you should be able to look at the data and figure out what went wrong, what's going right, and where do I need to make a change. The change is where it's all at. OK, so we've added different dimensions to our data. We've got space, time, rotation. We can do different sorts of data. I want to actually take us back to the orientational view we created a minute ago. Max those out again. Thank you. OK, now, setup of data. I want to show you, again, we've got 2 setups like we did before, a good one and a bad one. Show me the other one. Which one looks better to you? So show of hands. First one? Second one? OK, first one. Who thinks first one is the better setup? I see a few hands. Second one. OK, a few hands. And an awful lot of people are a little unclear, I think. It's fair to say. Or at least, again, are we out there? Has anyone fallen asleep yet? OK, so a limitation of the existing system is that sometimes it's a little hard to make sense of the data. I'm a pretty expert with this, and even I would probably have trouble knowing where that was going up. So we're going to take you into the kind of this. I mentioned this is the bleeding edge version. We've got some new stuff, and I'm going to show, with a little help from Rambod here, I'm going to show you something new we're working on. Okay, this is very much under development. It might even break. Whoever knows? But we're gonna fly high wire here.
Who's left?
Left?
Left.
Right?
Right.
Okay. Take me away. All right. Can everyone see that? I hope. All right. So here we are. We've taken the roof off the building, by the way, just to make, because some of the earlier stuff was easier to see. So we've created a VR setup of the Firewatch Tower. Now, first thing I got to say, look, is we're going to be demoing this at our booth. You have to come by and see this for yourself in the booth, not because of the heat maps, but because this is so freaking awesome to see Firewatch from inside a VR setup. The artwork is, I mean, it's a beautiful game to begin with, but you're just going to be blown away by how beautiful it is to be here in just the gorgeous golden light and everything. It's amazing. But I do have a mission here, and my mission is to talk about heat maps. So I don't know how well you guys can make it out on the screen, but right in front of me, there's a diamond shape. And I'm going to, oh, we have these the wrong way around. I'm going to navigate over to this diamond. And I don't know, again, I hope you guys can see this as well as at least looking as good as it does to me. I want to find there. OK, that's being a little bit fidgety. There we go. OK, if you could see what I'm seeing, I am now looking at one of those two setups. This is the first setup. But I'm seeing it from the perspective of where the user was standing when he looked. And I can look around, and I can see all these dots. OK, now, Rambod, would you give me the second setup? All right. Interesting. OK, now, based on this, tell me, people, which one was the better one? The last one or this one? Last one? This one. Okay, I see more hands saying, maybe not as clear as I think it is. Let me go back in, and I'm going to show you one more thing that'll help you really see the difference. So I've got a handy-dandy tool sitting right here. I hope I do. There we go. And I'm going to make sure this thing is as high as it can be. There we go. And I'm going to just do some readings here. I got a density of 147 on this one. 44. 3, 1, 2. I hope you can all see this. 19. Okay, Rambod, the other one. 1, 37, 11, 1. Okay, those of you who said that the first setup was the better setup clearly won. But the point is clearly, I was able to measure exactly, almost like I was using a light meter, and figure out precisely what was going on in that game from the user's point of view. So I can walk around. You can literally walk around a good chunk of the game now, or at least the tower and around that place, to see and to come to understand your data. Thank you. So just to kind of sum all that up, we've got a tool existing today. Everything except the VR pretty much is the stuff that you can actually do today. We've made some refinements to the UI, and we've made some polishes to how that point-to-point stuff, where the interaction stuff I showed you worked. But basically, everything there, except for the VR, is the stuff you can see and get in the heat map plugin today. What we're doing, though, now is we're adding stuff that is useful not just for a VR game. Sure, this would be very useful for a VR game, for a VR, let's say, a movie experience. You want to know where people are looking. But Firewatch is not a VR game, and yet you could still use the tool to help you understand your engagement better. So that's what we came to talk to you about today. We have a little time left. I would really like to invite Jocelyn and Stephen to come back up on stage. We have some time for some QA, so thank you very, very much. Questions? I'm sorry, say that one more time? Okay, excellent question. So the question is, how are you going to help a developer set up a heat map in VR? So the first step is for your game. It's actually really easy. It's a line of code, right? So you simply say when some event occurs, like the user grabbed an object. So we actually had events like this, single line events, and all you have to do is set that one line and say this thing happened. You give it a name, like interaction or beat the boss or whatever it is. And then the heat map event actually automatically sends the data that relates to the position, the rotation, stuff like that. So it would be based on whatever you decided to send. So the headset works real well for a VR game. In the demo that we did, we literally kind of played Firewatch, and we just attached it to the cam rig. So you can do it pretty much any way you want.
So if I had like an escape the room game and I wanted to attach heat maps to every interactable object, saying if the user grabs this object, how long they grab it for, if it's relevant.
You can do all of, yes, you can.
One line of code?
Yes.
And do I do it on the base class or do it at every class that
It depends on your case. Because so what I would probably do is I would create a mono behavior that did this job, like as a single class, and then I would just add that to each object. Because then it'll do something like say, give me my name, so you have a unique identifier for it, and that just becomes a parameter. Because you could, again, there are so many features to the heat map system that I didn't get into. Like, so for example, you can break your data up. I gave you some dimensions that were really cool, interesting, common dimensions. But you could, for example, add level, or you could add the name of an object and say, break it out. I just want to see the backpack. I don't care about any other event but the backpack interaction event. And you could just see that list. So you can do all kinds of stuff like that if you wanted to. And then as far as actually getting the heat map working within your game, so you can look at the heat map, that's a slightly separate problem. And to be honest, we're still working on it. As I say, this is bleeding edge. So, yeah, get in touch with us at the booth.
Yeah. We have some mics set up too if somebody has a question.
That's a good point.
So everybody can hear.
Other questions? Analytics with advertising in VR? Sorry, advertising in VR?
Yeah, we're exploring those areas right now, and we don't have any announcements to make at this time, but we think that analytics in VR and advertising is going to be a big, huge area in the future.
I will say that analytics works with the VR platforms now. You can pretty much just turn it on like anything else. Ads is a slightly different issue, only because VR is already a bit of a premium platform and a rather limited premium platform in that respect. So I don't think ads has really made a huge move that direction quite yet. Is that true? I don't want to speak out of turn, but okay, then ignore me.
Over here.
Can I put ads on a surface?
We currently don't support the Windows platform for ads.
Not platform surface, on a surface. So if I have a TV in there, can I put it?
Oh. Yeah, sorry. I was thinking you meant something else with all the news lately on Microsoft's side. Right now, our ads are full screen only. All right. Other questions? Right here.
In regards to supporting multiple stores, how is that integrated with the platform selection? I recall in Unity 4, it was difficult to differentiate between, for example, Google and Amazon or the Android platform. How is that handled differently in your version of Unity 5?
Yeah, so currently for Unity IAP. Oh, sorry. So the question was, how do we handle different Android stores and platform selection in Unity 5? Because it was difficult in 4.6. So as of 5.3, which is when Unity IAP was released, there's a setting under the IAP menu that lets you state which platform the purchases or which store the purchases will be taking on it. As we expand into other platforms in the next 6 to 9 months, we're looking at the UI to make it more intuitive. Right now, the highest likelihood solution was it will be parameter under the build target for Android.
Would you like to come up to the, yeah.
With the cutting edge demonstration used with a heat map in the VR, is it only the premium, so the Oculus and the Vive, or can you do something with one of those like cheapo $30 cardboard things, and then, you know, it's basically first person, but at least you'd have, you know, like better kind of usability?
Yeah.
That's similar?
So the short answer is analytics itself, and therefore heat maps, works with all the platforms that Unity, well, all the VR platforms anyway that Unity supports. We're covering all the current platforms. Will you get a particular, you know, will you be happy with the result is maybe a slightly different question. We've been certainly our visualizer is with a Vive, you know, we're visualizing with a Vive. As long as you could visualize on the other end, you'll find that works better. But you could totally, the data itself doesn't care what platform particularly.
Yeah. So you could integrate that with like the Google Cardboard SDK, no problem, and then.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, it'll run, you know, Cardboard's a great case because it's just an, you know, it's a Google phone, Android phone. It doesn't really care so much about the fact that it's VR or not. The data that you get out and how you choose to interpret that data might have its own special cases there, but it should work. Yeah. So the question is there native heat mapping for 360 video players? The answer is not currently. Who knows in the future, but not currently. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.